After years of flops like Encanto, Turning Red, Wish, Lightyear, Strange Worlds, The Marvels, Indiana Jones 5, and The Dial of Destiny, it has been discovered that with the recent presidential administration taking over, a lot of these companies are deciding to try and let the pendulum swing back the other way, at least a little bit. You know, I think a lot of it is performative, and it is mostly true in the fact here that Disney is looking to supposedly be pulling back some of their DEI policies, as well as they're changing the way content warnings are coming up on screen. But I think the reason why this is very interesting is it's not about getting rid of DEI. What it's doing is exactly what every corporation does when they want to obfuscate what they're doing, which is to make their language even more obtuse and indecipherable than it already is, which is actually really, really infuriating when you think about it. But I do want to read some of these headlines, and we'll go through a little bit. So this was from Variety. I'll read the head of HR's statement first, and then explain to you why it's not actually happening. So this is from Variety. It says Disney Plus to change content warnings ahead of Dumbo, Peter Pan, and more, and DEI strategy shift. So again, this is not a strategy shift. This is from their Chief Human Resources Officer, Sonia Coleman, who outlined the changes to the company's DEI efforts in a memo on Tuesday. Quote, creating a welcoming and respectful environment for our employees and guests is core to our company culture and our business. Our values, integrity, creativity, collaboration, community, inclusion guide our actions and how we treat each other. Today, I want to provide an update on how our values are embedded in our leader compensation programs. Those are what are called other performance factors. If you want to know what that is in non-corporate speak, it's bonuses for quotas. It's you have to reach this quota, you will make this amount of money. They're simply going to change the name of it. It will no longer be about DEI. It's about strategic. It's about company strategy.
Dude, I just read an article literally right before the show where the University of Michigan did something exactly like that, where they got rid of all their DEI offices and just changed the name to just strategic planning coordinator.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
it's cancer.
It is,
it's cancer.
And you can't
annoying.
you can't get rid of it because look, we're seeing it a little bit with. I saw that PBS shuttered their DEI department because it's publicly funded. The same is true at a lot of these other businesses. And did you see that the FCC chair is looking to investigate NBC Universal because he said that they're not. He says you say you're closing your DEI departments, but I don't think you're doing it. It's because they don't have to. All they have to do is change the name.
Yeah, it's really the practice that the government is going to have to look at. They're going to have to look and see, are they hiring based on race? Are they preventing people from being hired, or are they hiring people based on the color of their skin?
Is it even possible to do that? Can't they just don't they have plausible deniability? Like, oh, that's just the person we like. How do you prove it outside of maybe memos?
What you have to do is you have to make it so painful if they're found to have done that it's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened with the Civil Rights Act. Like, so these are all covered under the Civil Rights Act, the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And what happened was the government made it so that way, if you had been found to have been discriminatory, it was absolutely horrible for your business. Yeah. And so what they have to do is they have to make the same kind of results. If you have been found to be discriminatory, you have to pay a massive fine. Yeah. The kind of fine that'll put a lot of companies out of business, and that'll make it that it will disincentivize companies enough to not do it.
So it says, previously Disney evaluated executive bonuses using other performance factors called OPFs, including a diversity and inclusion metric. The metric has now been replaced with something called talent strategy. Which is as vague of a term as you could possibly ever get. In fact, I actually think it's more infuriating. Whatever you think about DEI hiring practices, I would rather they actually just stand on business and say, this is what we want to do, rather than saying, talking out of both sides of their mouths and saying, we want to do this, but actually we're going to just keep doing this because it's actually what we value. So they're telling their shareholders one thing and they're doing another thing because they're just changing the name.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're just faceless entities.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just faceless entities. I'm usually pretty good about that.
Yeah.
But It's why I don't really trust like we were talking about, what was it, Tuesday or Monday when I was last on, those Super Bowl commercials that were like the vaguely pro-America stuff. Like, I really don't buy it now that it's come back like the other way. It's just, they're doing the other shit behind closed doors still. You have
to kind of make a value judgment. Like, do you care whether they actually mean it or not? I tend to say that I don't go to corporations or celebrities for actual, like, for them to actually believe that they believe what they're saying. Yeah. I don't go to them for authenticity.
I go for entertainment and a product and a service.
So it says, while this sounds like a shift away from identity-based hiring, Disney admits that this new factor, meaning the strategic, the talent strategy department, will still include concepts of the former DEI system. In other words, they've just renamed it without necessarily changing the substance. They have also shuttered the Reimagine Tomorrow department, which is I'm sure is also going to be reopened under another label, right? But the point of that was what launched their desire to have 50% of their hires by the year 2022 be from marginalized groups. So it was the definition of race and gender-based casting for their projects and their shows. I don't expect any of this to actually ever equal out to any actual change because the language just gets more obtuse. I read this entire memo from this HR lady, and everything she says has no meaning. It's just a bunch of corporate doublespeak that doesn't actually mean anything. And you can only really judge these companies based on whether they're actually delivering products you actually like, right? So Captain America Brave New World is now out, and it has like it was like sitting at like 40-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. And that was just from the critics, which means that the audience score is liable to either be a lot higher because the audience ends up not agreeing with them, or maybe they fall in line. Very rarely do critics and audiences actually agree these days, but there's been all sorts of comments about why they chose to make the movie around Sam Wilson rather than making it around Bucky. And like I said before, I listed off a bunch of movies at the top of the segment that were all films that likely wouldn't have been made if these policies weren't in fact incorporated. And it's not just that, it's also the fact that they're looking to walk back some of the way that they do the content warnings at the beginnings of movies. Now, what's weird is like, that stuff's never bothered me. Like, I know that bothers a lot of people. I care a lot when they change something that's in a movie. Like, did you guys see that they removed scenes from Crocodile Dundee on the re-released the re-released 4K? So
I don't want to watch old movies as re-releases or anything like that. If I'm not watching the original, like VHS or whatever, I don't trust them, because whether it be Crocodile Dundee or E.T., they change the guns to walkie-talkies or whatever. Changing old things to reflect modern sensibilities is absolutely terrible. You're changing the story.
Yeah. It's crazy because to me, like, so a lot of shows will end up on multiple streaming services, and I've actually seen shows that end up on multiple streaming services where one will have the widescreen re-release and one will have the original 4:3 aspect ratio, the box aspect ratio, and I will only watch it on the one with the original aspect ratio because it's just representative of what that actually looked like when I was a kid. Right? Love that. So this is what it says. So it says, as first reported by Axios and confirmed by Variety, Disney is changing the disclaimer that autoplays before these titles, and they were talking about these movies, Peter Pan, Dumbo, and other old movies, of their time is the language that they always use. The previous versions noted that it says includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures, while the new version reads, this program is presented as originally created and may contain stereotypes or negative depictions. In 2019, Disney first added content warnings to movies such as Dumbo due to racist depictions found in the film created by Disney in the 1940s and 50s. The program is now presented as originally created. The warning previously said it may contain outdated depictions. I do believe that this is actually one of those things that ends up like, as much as it doesn't bother me, I think it ends up harming a lot of younger people who may not have been subject to the material in the first place, because what it does is it actually makes them like worried about what they're about to watch. They're like waiting for the offensive thing to show up on screen, and it's actually destroying their ability to think critically about what they're watching.
Like, trigger warnings are set people on edge, and I think that there's been studies that show that they're actually counterproductive. Yeah. Let the things that might shock people happen. Let them go by, because a lot of people don't even notice them.
Yeah.
A lot of the times they'll be like, "What?" and it won't register.
It implants the idea in your head that it's offensive.
Yeah. You're looking for problems when you don't need to be looking for problems. Watch the movie. If you pick up on an off-color joke, then I mean, it's not something that you want to, it's not something to be proud of, Disney, but at the very least you can say, well, this was something that was acceptable back then and it's not acceptable now. But the idea of trigger warnings and stuff, it's bad for people that are watching. It puts people on edge, and they don't make people less likely to be upset or irritated by something. They make it more likely.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.